Greetings to you, my lovely students. I welcome you to today's class. Recalling the last class, I taught you the husbandry of oil palm crop. In today's class, I'll be taking you the husbandry of cocoa, scientifically referred to as Theobroma cacao. And in this class, I'll be explaining the pre-planting operation, planting operation, and post-planting operation. Cocoa is a very important product to humans, and Nigeria happens to be the fourth largest producer of cocoa after Ghana and Ivory Coast. Now, the description of cocoa, we're talking about the description of cocoa shortly, then also the major cultivars of cocoa, the pre-planting, planting, and post-planting operations in cocoa farming. Now, husbandry refer to management or care that you give to plant or animals. Now, Theobroma cacao is called cocoa. Belongs to the family Malvaceae. It is actually grown for its edible seeds. It is the seed that is useful. The pod is not useful. Now, cocoa can grow to a height of about 6 meters, and that's the cocoa tree. And the cocoa beans can be so robust, growing to about 21 centimeter. Now we have about 3 cultivars of cocoa, that is the Amazon, the Amelonado, and the Criollo Trinitario. Now, the Amazon, it produces pods with long, rough, and thick hard walls. It's deeply furrowed with a pointed end. It has pointed end, unlike the Amelonado that is round at the end, but the Amazon is pointed at the end. The pods are green when mature and become yellow when ripe. The same applies to Amelonado. Amelonado also, they are green when unripe and becomes yellow when ripe. Now, the third one, which is the Criollo. The Criollo is a cultivar of cocoa that produces high quality bean, but most times the pods are liable to black pod disease attack. Black pod disease is caused by fungi. Now, here we say Trinitario angulata, that's another cultivar, which is actually from Trinitario. Is narrow shaped with rough surface. Just like I said earlier, it has round end. Now, if you look at the picture, you realize that number 5 is an Amelonado, while number 4 is Amazon. Now, pre-planting operation, we talk about the land preparation, climatic requirements, and soil requirements of cocoa. Now, for the land preparation, we'll talk about the machines that are used for cocoa cultivation. And in the climatic requirement, we'll talk about the rainfall, the sunshine, and the rest. Now, land preparation, most times cocoa is usually planted as a plantation, sometimes growing up to 1,000 heads per hectare. Now, but the land should be mechanically cleared using a plow or a cutlass. Stumping doesn't really need to be done because cocoa is a tree, and sometimes some people don't do complete tillage. That's why cocoa is called a non-arable crop, because they don't do complete tillage for it. Now, cocoa is the climatic requirement of cocoa. Cocoa is usually grown most times in the Guinea savanna to swamp forest to the rainforest region, not really the Sudan savanna or Sahel savanna. Now, cocoa requires an annual rainfall of about 1,200 to 2,000 millimeter per annum of rainfall, and it requires a sunshine that is not below 17 degrees centigrade or not more than 25 degrees centigrade. Now, the planting operation, we have the method of propagation. We have the seeds, we have a planting date, we have plant spacing, nursery management of seedlings, transplanting of seedlings into the field. Now, I must say here that cocoa requires a well-drained, deep loamy soil that has a lot of clay in it, and the soil must be slightly acidic or neutral. Now, cocoa can be propagated using seeds, that's asexually, or using budding or the stem cutting, that is asexually. The first one is sexually, that is using seeds, and asexually using budding or stem cutting technique. Now, this is a picture of budding. It's different from layering, and it's different from grafting. You don't do layering in cocoa. In some parts of the world, some people do grafting in cocoa. So grafting, stem cutting, or budding, they are all vegetative parts, the vegetative techniques of growing cocoa. Now, planting dates, usually cocoa is usually planted both in the nursery and in the field. So, but in the nursery, the planting into the nursery is done in October to January, and then transplanting to the field is usually between April and June. Now, plant spacing of cocoa in the field is usually 3 meters by 3 meters, and in the nursery is usually 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter. Nursery management of cocoa seedlings. Cocoa is usually sown in polythene bags, as you can see in the picture here, and a shade is placed above the cocoa nursery. Now, watering is usually done twice every day, morning and evening. There's also regular weeding, where there is possibility of the weed growing among the cocoa seedlings. And during this stage, there's always enough care and management of the cocoa seedling, because if the watering is not done, the cocoa can dry up and die, and that's why most times there is always a shade above the cocoa seedlings. And during this stage also, there's also fertilizer application to the cocoa seedlings, so that they can be able to grow properly during the nursery stage. Now, like I said before, transplanting to a field always takes place between April and June, and the cocoa seedlings are transplanted into the field as from April during the rainy season. Now, normally they stay in the nursery for 5 to 6 months. After planting into the nursery, they are then moved to the field. Now, the transplanting to the field always take place using the ball of the earth, okay, and the hole is dug up to 45 centimeter depth. Now, post planting operations include weeding, it includes shading, fertilizer application, mulching, and pruning of the cocoa itself. So during this for this subtopic, post planting operations, we'll be looking at the harvesting of cocoa beans, processing of cocoa beans, cocoa pest management, and the rest. Now, cultural practices in cocoa husbandry. The weeding should be done regularly, whether in the nursery or in the field. Weeding should be done regularly. The shading should also be done, even when the cocoa seedling is up to 6 months of age. They should get shading. And fertilizer application requires use of urea or sulfate of ammonia at about 8 to 12 weeks. Mulching should also be done to reduce evaporation whether in the nursery or in the field. Then pruning is usually done by removing the lower branches. Removing of the lower branches will encourage better canopy formation, more light penetration, and improved air movement. Now, harvesting of cocoa beans. Now, cocoa gets matured at about 3 to 5 years after planting from the nursery. Now, again, depending on the variety, anyway, because some gets matured late. Now, harvesting is usually done using the harvesting knife when the cocoa pods are ripe, or you can also use a cutlass or a sickle or go to hair. Now, they must be in such a way that you don't damage the other flower cushion that is growing from the stem. Now, processing of cocoa starts with breaking of the pods. The pods are carefully opened with a blunt cutlass, or they are hit by a heavy rod to remove the cocoa beans. Now, after removing of the cocoa beans, the next stage is fermentation. Fermentation is usually done using a sweat box or a tray method for about 5 days. Fermentation is usually done in order to give the cocoa beans its chocolate flavor. Without fermentation, the cocoa will not have its chocolate flavor. Now, this during this fermentation, the cocoa beans undergo chemical changes brought about by the action of the heat, and the fermentation also helps in what is referred to as theobromization, that is the reduction of theobromine. Now, theobromine is also good, but because that's what gives the stimulating properties of cocoa. But excess of theobromine is hazardous or dangerous to the health. Now, the next one is also drying. After fermentation, the cocoa bean seeds are left to dry in the open under the sun for about 6 to 10 days, and then the cocoa beans is properly dried and stored. They are stored in a jute bag or sacks, ready for exploit or ready for export, or ready to be sent to the factory where they are now converted to other things like the chocolate bars they are used in producing beverage drinks, or like the Milo or Bonvita and what have you. Now, the next one is the cocoa pest management. The two major pests that affect cocoa is the cocoa capsid bugs and the mealy bugs. Although there are also other insects that affect cocoa, such as grasshoppers, such as grass cutter, and others, and also birds are also pests of cocoa. But the major pests of cocoa are cocoa capsid and cocoa mealy bugs. Now, cocoa capsid bugs, it's a piercing and sucking insect that causes reduction in the yield. You can be controlled by spraying with insecticide, while mealybugs can also be controlled using insecticide. Mealybugs usually cause swollen shoot disease of cocoa through the biting and sucking of this insect on the shoots and fruit. Now, the major cocoa disease is the black pod disease of cocoa and the swollen shoot disease of cocoa. Now, the black pod disease of cocoa is caused by a fungi which is spread by grain splash, and once it covers the fruit, it causes the fruit to have a powdery spores which result in rotten black pod. Now, most times black pod disease is controlled by either removing and destroying infected pods as one, regular weeding, and also spraying of fungicides such as Bordeaux mixture or Peronox. Then the last one is by burning of infected pods. Once it's noticed an infected pod, remove and then destroy. Then the next one is the swollen shoot disease of cocoa. It is caused by a virus, and the virus is transmitted by the mealybug. So the mealybug is in the picture as you can see. The mealybug serves as a vector for this virus that causes swollen shoot disease of cocoa. Now, the symptoms is that there will be swelling of the branches, malformation of the leaves, and premature defoliation. Now, one of the basic method of controlling swollen shoot disease of cocoa is by spraying with insecticide to kill the vector, which is the mealybug, or destroying and burning infected plants so that it doesn't spread to other crop. Then also planting resistant varieties. It is essential that a farmer and an agricultural science student have a knowledge on cocoa husbandry in order to increase the production of cocoa in Nigeria, and which will also help in the exportation of cocoa. This will also help to create more jobs for farmers. I hope you have learned well. I wish you a wonderful time. Do have a great day.